This podcast is brought to you by Voice and Vision, bringing help, hope, and healing to individuals, families, and communities affected by mental illness, addictions, and disabilities in southeastern Pennsylvania. Financial support for this podcast is provided by a Veterans Trust Fund grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Military and Veterans Affairs.
Welcome to Untold Valor, a podcast with a unique focus on veterans, featuring stories of courage, recovery, perseverance, and strength. Listen to hear veterans share their perspectives on what it's like to battle mental health challenges, combat addictions, and overcome other adversities unique to those who have served.
Welcome into another edition of the podcast. This is Untold Valor, where we share the experiences of men and women in the service. And this week on the podcast, we are talking with Donald Carter, a.k.a. Tate. So welcome into the podcast, Donald. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your time in the service and how you got the nickname. How are you?
I'm hiring you. My name is Donald Carter. I'm from Philadelphia. I was in the Air Force from 1988 to 1992. I got my nickname because when I was born, my head was kind of oddly shaped. So my family said it looked like a potato. So to this day, my family calls me Tate, but as I've gotten older, people just call me Tate.
I gotcha.
Don't tell nobody that story, though.
No, we'll keep it amongst ourselves. Yeah, nobody will know but us three.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. You know, we did the same thing with my daughter. She was really small, and we called her Peanut, because she was a little peanut. And to this day, she's still Peanut, and she can't stand it. She's in the Navy. So how long were you in the Air Force again?
I was in it for 4 years, from 1988 to 1992, stationed in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay. Yep. That's where she was stationed as well. Reverend Ben?
Hey, Tate, I'm glad to have you on.
Thank you.
Used to chip off the old block. What trauma did you experience while in the service? I mean, I'm a veteran also and been on deployments and things like that. And what was your trauma you experienced? We all have some. What was yours?
Yes. Okay. So what happened with me was, I was like 20 years old, 21 years old, and I was at the peak of my physical abilities. I was in civil engineering, so I was the quarterback. I was the point guard. I was on the softball team. And then it was like one day I started having some breathing issues. So I went to the base doctor, ended up having a bad asthma attack. So with them finding out that I had asthma, I also realized I had high blood pressure. So then they were bringing me back like every 4 days to monitor my blood pressure. And they were putting me on meds, and it was a shock to me because it was like, where did this come from? What causes it? How is it going to affect me? So end up being like a cold, the length of a cold. So it went away, but it was always in the back of my mind, like what will bring it on, and so I kind of went. It was towards the last year of my service time, but it was kind of stressful just monitoring it. Now, the last year I didn't have another attack, but when I came out, I started going to the doctor at the VA in Philly, and she really identified that it was one of the main causes were allergies. So she put me on an allergy pill. Come to find out I was allergic to like dog and cat hair, cigarette smoke. Sometimes if I laugh real hard, and sometimes you get out of breath when you laugh, it will kind of bring it on. So with all that stress, I was awarded a 60% disability for asthma and my high blood pressure.
So what treatments, whenever you kind of identified that, did you get immediate help from your superiors? Were they able to kind of get you in the right direction? How did that go?
Yes, they put me on blood pressure meds every day. And then, like I said, I would only need asthma treatment when I had attacks, but they did identify to take allergy medicine every day, just kind of keep down from the reactions, so that really helped. But it was like, being younger and how we would diagnose ourselves. And so I just had to really lock in. So one day my doctor at the VA told me, "Have you been taking your blood pressure medicine?" I was like, "Yeah, doc, some days I miss." So she was like, look me in the eyes. She said, "If you don't take your blood pressure medicine, you're going to die." And I swear I haven't missed a day since that day in 1993 because I realized the seriousness of it. And, just just blood pressure, just in my family. So that really got me on track. And then once I went to a doctor off base, Dr. Cohen, him and his dad made a life of helping veterans. He said his dad was helping Vietnam veterans get proper that they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
So he taught his two sons. So Dr. Cohen taught me how, like, I'll give you an example. He was like, so he said, give me a story, about things that you have to be aware of with your asthma. I said, let's say if Ebony was having a party at her house, right? And I would try to find out, like, does Ebony have a dog? Does she have a cat? Because her house could be spotless, but the little particles that fly in the air would affect my lungs. So it would be hard for me to ask someone, do they have a pet, without them being,
right,
feeling some type of way, thinking I'm saying their house is dirty.
Right.
So sometimes I wouldn't get a chance to ask them, I wouldn't go. So Dr. Cohen says, so you wouldn't go. So that means that you didn't have enough opportunity to go fellowship with people. That means you stayed home and you watched you didn't go out that night. So that affects your anxiety. You had a chance to go be with people, but you couldn't. So it was just things that he taught me that I was just living with because I didn't know.
Yeah,
that
like some mental hurdles to work through.
Yes, yeah. Like it goes. We just go on as usual, but no, these things affect you mentally that you just don't know.
Did this affect your deployments, things like that, by this disability?
Yes.
Did it hinder you from going on deployments and things like that?
Yes. So, and when I first had my asthma attack, I had orders to go to Puerto Rico. So once I had a bad asthma attack, it held me up. So they held me back until they got me together. So I was like down for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. And they realized maybe we shouldn't send them overseas. So they rerouted me and sent me to Charleston, South Carolina. But, I was super excited to go to Puerto Rico. I was single. I was ready. But I had to change. They had to change my deployment. So they wanted to keep me on stateside.
Yeah, and I imagine because you kind of started off by saying that you were in peak physical shape, you were really into the athletic and the physical fitness side of being in the service. So I imagine from that mental standpoint, it was kind of a bit of a blow to be like, and let's be honest, sometimes guys we want to be macho, we want to be doing everything that our buddies are doing. So I imagine that was a bit of a stressor as well.
Yes, it was, because there's no feeling like not being able to breathe. Yeah, like you normally do. So that was like,
and compete.
Where did this come from? Yes, because I was a basketball machine back then. You
were talking about just the stress and the anxiety from just the little things that people don't often think about, like you're just not socializing as much because you're wondering if you're going to have an attack. How did you respond with that? How did you kind of get through that?
I mean, unfortunately, it just became a norm, which I think a lot of anxiety issues in our lives, we make it the norm just because, being from Philly, growing up certain ways, it's just things I do automatically that you don't realize that now since I've moved to Gilbertsville, I really see how I was really living in anxiety when I was in Philly, So it was the same concept, but Dr. Cohen just really helped me really dig into it and open it. So that took my rating from 60% to 100%. And then, it's just once Dr. Cohen, documented everything and told him about all of our appointments, all of our sessions, and then I was awarded 100%. So it was like, okay, now I'm gonna take this a little more serious. I'm gonna take it, see how things really affect me, and see how, because anxiety we have it, but we're so used to it because we grew up. Right. A quick story, like when my wife used to go out when I lived in Philly, when she would come home, she would call me and say, come to the door, I'm parking. Come to the door, somebody's walking down the street. So it was just a natural thing to me. I'd run to the door, wait till she got in. I remember my first night here in Gilbertsville, we were moving in. I had to park my truck, the moving truck, around the corner because my mom was in the driveway. And I got out my car and I stood there and I looked around because I was so used to doing it in Philly. And I realized I'm only going to see deer up here, So it really was an eye opener to how I was just raised and always lived with that anxiety. But that's just not how it's supposed to be.
So changing your environment has also helped that as well.
Yeah, even my daughter, her first day of school here, she came home. I said, "How was it?" She said, "I really like it, Daddy." And before this, she was in a Catholic school in South Philly. We were paying a lot of money. So her first day here, she came home and I said, "How was school?" She said, "Daddy, it was great. You know what the best part was? No bullies."
There you go.
And
That's awesome.
That just went right to my chest.
Yeah.
Does that mean she was in Philly in that school? We paying all that money, just dealing with it, and not even coming home and telling us. So that was hard. That broke my heart.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that there's been positives there. Well, part of the point of the podcast is to definitely share experiences and stories, but also how, getting help and reaching out for help. So, I'd like to acknowledge this, Dr. Cohen, I believe you said, and really sounds like he made a real difference in helping you along the way.
Definitely. And like the young lady before me, I really depended on my faith in God. And, because what my mom taught me, she just passed away November 27th, and she rests in peace. She taught me that, your faith is like a muscle. Like you go to the gym and you develop your muscles, you have to develop your faith the same way. And that really stuck with me.
Absolutely. Condolences on the loss for your mother.
Thank you.
Any takeaway messages you'd like to share with us, Tate? As far as did you feel like did you struggle asking for help, or did it come easy to you? And did you find that help was easy, or just kind of anything you'd like to share for other veterans who might, big or small, whatever their challenge might be?
Yes, I would say go and reach out for counseling, for help. Like counseling helped me with that, helped me with my marriage. Because sometimes I think that we go through things in life and we think that makes us an expert, but it just gives you experience. But you go to the professionals and you realize they open up things and open your eyes to things. And I still use the same principles that Dr. Cohen taught me, just when I'm having, any type of issues, anything, any type of drama or traumatic issues, or whether big or small, I use those same principles. Think it out, talk to people, talk to my wife, like me and my family, we have family meetings. A pastor once taught me, run your family like it's a business, because it is a business. And I literally have a family meeting here like it's like I'm at work. And let my wife speak, I speak, I ask the kids, anything you have to say, you have any complaints, and it really works out great.
That's fantastic. Let me ask you again about that kind of, the athletic or the competitive side, because again, I know, like a buddy of mine who was in the service for 22 years, the big thing was always like making sure he could hang with the guys and do exactly what they were doing. And when he was starting to suffer from some injuries and some issues, it really bothered him that he couldn't, quote unquote, keep up. Right. Did you have any experiences like that? And did it kind of frustrate you because, again, you went in so young and you were so, athletic?
Right. I mean, it did affect me once I got in, as far as when I was doing sports wise. But the reason why I went in when I was younger is because it was like I graduated in '86 on a Friday. That Monday, I started with 2 full-time jobs, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. My parents gave me a car for graduation. So it was like I had everything, a young guy would want, but just my spiritual side and internally, I felt like I was just walking in place. I didn't really feel like college at the time, but I wanted to be a part of something. So I joined the military, even having 2 jobs, a car, and, the life back then. But the military really made me feel like I'm a part of something. And I'm so glad I did it. And it just helped me as a young man realize that really I feel like every man should have to go through that, because it really got me ready for life as a man.
Yeah, that camaraderie as well as that the discipline and I got you.
Yes.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, Tate, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. Thanks for sharing your story. Reverend Ben, thanks for being here and asking some questions. And I think no matter what your situation, right, it's always there's help out there. You just have to kind of find it within yourself to reach out and ask someone, and hopefully you can find someone who really takes you under the wing, kind of helps you out like Dr. Cohen did for you. So fantastic story.
Yes. Thank you.
You've been listening to Untold Valor by Voice and Vision.
We hope you found the information and resources discussed today helpful. As always, thank you for listening and for your support. Remember to stay connected with us through our various social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Don't forget to visit the website, voiceandvisioninc.org. That's voiceandvisioninc.org, where you can sign up for our blog and find free resources and information on upcoming events, webinars, workshops, and get support. You can also access our free help and hope guide for individuals and families struggling with substance use and addiction. If someone you know is struggling, please reach out for help because you and your life matter. Remember, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available to you at any time by dialing 988. We are all ambassadors of hope and recovery, and if you want to share your story, please contact us. Compeer Corps is also looking for veteran mentor volunteers and veteran participants. To find out more information about Compeer Corps, please call 610-541-0790. That's 610-541-0790. You can find all the links and contact information for the resources mentioned on today's episode by checking the description and the show notes section of your app. Thank you again for tuning in and for your support. Until next time, this has been Untold Valor.